Andrew, I had my hair cut, my ears waxed, my nose hairs trimmed, I had a facial and foot reflexology. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm so excited. This is our first guest episode ever. So let's just get started. Welcome to another episode of Mostly True Alien Stories.
UFO sightings. Many Americans have wondered about the dangers of unknown objects.
Scientists in Mexico pulling back the curtain. We need to save ourselves.
This is going to be a great show today because we have a very special guest coming on, our first guest ever, Michelle Hurd from the Picard series, Star Trek Picard. Yes.
No way.
Yes. I love how
Oh
you
my gosh, this is
pretend to be excited. I love how you pretend to be excited, knowing you knew who our guest was going to be.
It's true. You just told me 5 minutes ago who the guest was. So
It's true. And
I was more excited then and not now. I'm still excited, but
I know.
she's not here yet. So
well, you're going to get even more excited when she gets on here. She's a wonderful person. And you know what? Our story today is really a good one. I'm excited about this. The Travis Walton alien abduction episode. This logger out in Arizona in 1975 was abducted by aliens and gone for 5 days. It's a great story. We're gonna dig into that, see if that is a mostly true alien story. And before we get to all of that,
yeah.
let's get into the alien news and entertainment.
Okay, so you might know this. You might not know this. The White House. The White House finally gave us answers on the drones. Isn't this fantastic?
Okay, yeah, I've seen some of those reports, but let's see what you're reporting.
Well, what I'm going to report is the New Jersey residents in disbelief over White House answers on the drones.
Well, because they're not telling us anything. They're saying it's classified, but then when you ask this general, well, what's classified about it? He says, well, I don't have my notes in front of me.
Yep, so local leaders there are not satisfied with the answer. The White House says that the drones were approved by the FAA. Wave of drone sightings baffled and concerned residents for the longest time in New Jersey. I mean, they were there for over a week, right? Just in the sky at night, just hanging out.
Yeah.
So the fears that the drones could be connected to foreign adversaries, as residents questioned why were there so many sightings, President Donald Trump vowed to get to the bottom of the issue.
He did.
Yep, he did. And at a White House press briefing, it said the drones were approved by FAA and nothing to be concerned about.
Okay. Well, then there you have it. I'm not concerned anymore. Yeah.
When we talked about this, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about them looking for radiation. We talked about them possibly being UAPs or UFOs.
Yes.
We talked about them just being guys recreationing with their drones outside. Yeah.
But now I've been told it's nothing. So we're good.
Wait a second. I'm not good with it. You know why I'm not good with it?
No, why?
Because they chose their words carefully, which they always do. They're not dancing around it. So my question is, if it's the FAA doing research, what research is it? Why are they doing research? I don't understand. I mean, do we want to talk about what's over near that area in New Jersey? Do we want to talk about the Piccaninny Arsenal? Well, right? That's located in New Jersey?
As long as the government is saying it's ours and no matter who they're pushing it up on, I think that's where we go. I've had it with the drones.
Yeah. But you know what's weird about the drones? Is that literally 4 days ago in Mercer County, Ohio.
In Ohio, the same thing's going on.
Ohio, the same thing is going on with several drone
Let me just tell you something. The weirdest things happen in Ohio anyway. So the fact that they're now adding drones on top of it, I think they just got jealous of New Jersey and they're just like, let's send them up.
Okay, so the FAA, FBI, and local law enforcement there in Mercer County have been contacted to coordinate an investigation. The origins of the drones are unknown, but you know what? We've already decided, folks, don't worry about it. It is the FAA doing these things.
They're all saying the same thing.
Yeah, they're all saying the same story.
Why are you so cynical about this? Why are you so angry about the drones?
I'm not. Listen,
you seem angry.
Listen. No, I'm not angry. I just find it
You
odd.
feel like they're not telling us everything.
I feel like it's not everything.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, if you're going to get angry about drones, not being told everything about the drones, I mean, God, you're not going to make it.
You're right.
All right, what else you got?
Upcoming UFO documentary. It's called The Age of Disclosure. Is there a way that you can put an echo on me when I say
I'll totally put an echo on it. You know what? Why don't you just do the echo? Let's hear it.
The age of disclosure.
I don't need to spend money on effects. I got
no effects. I'll be the special effects. If you need a beatbox, I can do that
That's
too.
perfect.
The Age of Disclosure, it is a documentary based on UFO sightings and discoveries. And it's claiming to lift the lid on an 80-year-old cover-up. The movie is scheduled to come out this March, 2025.
Yeah.
Now, what's weird is that the movie was actually supposed to come out last year in 2024.
So why do you think stopped it?
They probably uncovered something different, right? Something new,
Yeah.
something unprecedented,
Right. Well,
something revolutionary.
or it has been 2024 was a very active year for UFOs, alien, phenomenon, all of that stuff. So it's one of those things where I think it was probably smart by the producers to say, hey, let's just pause this now because there's a lot of stuff going on. Let's see how this year takes us.
So to our listeners out there, if you're interested in this, reading on this article, you can check it out in Unilad.
All right, what else you got?
Paradise just premiered on Hulu.
Oh, I've been seeing the coming attractions for this, man. I can't wait to watch it. To tell our listeners what it's about.
I can't tell you too much because it's going to spoil it for you.
Everybody dies, and there's aliens.
I'm not going to spoil it, but I will tell you this. It stars Sterling K. Brown, James Marsden, and Julianne Nicholson. And those three actors, they're fantastic actors. The show is amazing. I've watched the first 3 episodes. The 4th episode doesn't hit until next week. At the end of the first episode, your mind is going to be blown.
I can't wait. I love a show like that. And now you know how I am about the series of an alien series stuff.
Right.
I'm hoping this looks really good. I'm glad you recommended it. I'm going to make that a watch starting tomorrow. Okay, what's up next?
Jimi Hendrix, freaking amazing musician, right?
Is he an alien?
No, he's not an alien. But did you know the song Purple Haze? It's not about weed.
What's it about?
It's about aliens.
Is it really?
It is about, it's about aliens. Because Hendrix was a huge sci-fi fan. As a child, he loved Flash Gordon, the serials of Flash Gordon,
Okay.
right? He watched them all the time. He even told his parents to call him Buster, the name he borrowed from the lead actor. He used to draw flying saucers. He used to read all types of fiction. He wrote fan fiction. He was in Greenwich Village playing a gig. Chaz Chandler, the former bassist of the Animals, was like blown away by him and convinced him to fly to England. He gets to Chandler's house and he sees that this guy's got nothing but bookshelves stuffed full of sci-fi novels that Hendrix had never heard of before. He read this novel, Philip Jose Farmer's 1957 novel, Night of Light. It's a story about an interstellar sun rolling up once a generation to start warping and distorting reality.
Very
Farmer's
cool.
also mentioned the purplish haze of sunspots glowing around the distant planet.
Wow.
And the phrase resonated with Hendrix.
That's the origin of that song.
Wait, it gets better. He wrote a 10-page, 1,000-word poem about the bloody, war-filled history of the planet Neptune. After the show, he edited it down, paired it with a guitar riff he'd been working on,
Okay.
and Purple Haze was born.
There we go. Jimi effing Hendrix. It's funny how things evolve, right? How it came to be. If he hadn't gone there, seen that novel,
Probably
that
would have
song's
never
brilliant.
wrote
Yeah.
Purple Haze.
Now I'm not only going to watch the Paradise series, I'm going to go listen to some Jimi Hendrix after this show.
After you smoke a bunch of weed.
Yeah. You know what? I'm so excited. I know I rushed you through this news and alien news and entertainment today, but it's our first guest episode, and I think it's time that we bring in our guest. We've got a stellar guest joining us today, one whose career has spanned crime, horror, sci-fi, and now mostly true alien stories. You know her from Law & Order SVU, where she served up justice with grit and intelligence. You've seen her slay in Ash vs. Evil Dead, keeping the Deadites in check. She's rocked roles in The Glades, Blind Spot, and countless other fan-favorite series, proving time and time again that she's got range, depth, and serious badass energy. But I can't wait to talk to her about her most out-of-this-world role yet as the one and only Rafi in Star Trek Picard, where she goes toe-to-toe alongside the legendary Sir Patrick Stewart in the ever-expanding Star Trek universe. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend Michelle Hurd.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Michelle.
Everyone. I'm exhausted after that intro. I've seen a lot of stuff. I need a vacation.
Yeah, the show's over now.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. It was just an intro.
Yeah.
It's just a cold intro. Thank you so much. It's awesome.
Ceiling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Michelle, have you met Andrew Triana? He's my co-host on the Mostly True Alien Stories.
Hi, Andrew. How you?
Hi, Michelle. I'm good, thanks. How are
I'm
you?
very well. I adore
Awesome.
Neil, so I'm super happy to be here. Anytime I get to chat with him makes me happy.
Well, you should know
What should I?
that you are our first and favorite guest that we've ever had on this show.
So interesting how that
The-
happens. The first.
Yeah.
The best guest we've had so far.
You know, in a year from now,
Yes.
when we have our reunion show,
Yes.
you're going to say, remember when you just first started this podcast and I was your first
Like
guest?
me at that point, and then you got all these other guests, and it was all like, "Oh, they're really good." Whatever.
We're trying to set this precedent for any of our guests that are going to come on, starting with you and going forward. We have to first start out and ask Michelle,
What?
do you believe in the extraterrestrial life and otherworldly, life
Yeah.
on other planets?
You know, it's interesting being on Star Trek because you really do get the world of how huge our galaxy is, and it does seem kind of strange that in this huge galaxy that takes decades to travel from one place to another, that our, beautiful, precious little planet is the only form of life. So, to me, I feel like there has to be other life forms out there. There has to be. It's there's black holes that, that are centuries long, that we don't know what goes on in there. And, and as we always say, oh, look at the stars, they're so beautiful. We all know that when we see a star, it's actually a dying star. So it's, life has already happened there for a period of time, centuries before we even get to it. So I believe there is, I hope there is. And, being a Star Trek, in person, I hope that they're friendly. Because we've seen when they're not friendly, and it's not.
Yeah. Being friendly would be key.
It would be,
I think, for everything,
and
because I think that's what spawns all of this curiosity and everything. Is just what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Is it going to harm us, or are we going to be friends? I'll tell you, it will change. And Andrew and I have this conversation a lot about when the day comes that and they reveal themselves on this planet.
Yes.
I think a lot of shit's going to change.
Well, because this is the thing, and I was trying to figure this out, like why, we have so many movies. I mean, my shows as well, but so many movies about extraterrestrial and them coming down and this sort of scary situation, and something appears in the sky and we all stop, and then they're start shooting, killing us. And I guess we think that because in order to have that technology, right? Because it's all about the science. How do you get from there to here? If we have done our work and we know that it takes years, if not, and decades and centuries to travel to different planets, in order for some beings to come here, they would have to be more advanced than us. So I think it's so interesting that we assume, and I could be just being, just being a little bit too much of an optimist, but we assume that if you have better technology and you're more intelligent,
you want to dominate us.
For some reason, you want to dominate and kill and destroy. Wouldn't it be a glorious thing if you have, because you're so advanced in technology, in science, in the understanding of the preciousness of life, that when you seek out other life forms,
it's to save them.
You want to save them. You want to elevate them. You want to share information. You want to expand the universe and the galaxy. So I'm hopeful that is really when they reveal themselves.
So I have a theory on all of this. Could it be that all these TV shows and all these films are being created by people who possibly might have knowledge of extraterrestrial beings already? And so they're creating all of these things so that when they finally appear, everyone's not going to be shocked by it.
You think it might be a government influence of some sort, because they have these agencies that probably know about these things, and they're just like,
Men
they
in
have
Black.
a television division and a movie division, and they are like, we need to write about this. It's a good point. It's not a bad point. I mean, look at if you talk about the Star Trek. The Roddenberry.
Hypothesis.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that's amazing. I just came back from Comic-Con in San Francisco, and every time I go to these Comic-Cons, it's an amazing experience. It really is. My friends who aren't on, don't do Comic-Cons are always like, "What is it like?" Neil got to come and see one, which was awesome.
Oh yeah,
so much for being there.
Yes.
But what's so beautiful every time I go to wherever it is, and I go across the country, everybody is like-minded. we all have this sort of connection, right? There's a desire and a hope for a better tomorrow, for a more inclusive tomorrow, for a world where, or a galaxy where we explore and we interact with each other. And I always say, because I think it's like 60 years or something since Roddenberry, our first introductions into Star Trek. How did he know? How did he know that did he have a crystal? There's an episode, and I've got to remember the name of it because I always quote it, in the original series, where they have these two species that live on this one planet. And the species is on one side, on the left side, on the right side, they're black, and on the left side, they're white. And then the other species is black and white on the other side. At the end of this episode, they destroy their planet. They destroy their planet because they cannot accept each other.
It's the Gemini one.
You're such a nerd.
Yeah, I think it's called that.
You're such a nerd.
No, I love that. I love that. But that's the thing, right? Is that how did he so long ago know that we needed this storytelling?
Yeah, because and we know there is talented writers out there, but that's different. That's seeing the future. That's kind of really shaping it. It's different than being creative and writing a space show is one thing, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you too. When you're doing the series Picard, or any of the sci-fi stuff that you've done, where there's spaceships or there is alien weaponry or things like that, is there a guy on set? Is there someone on set that is just, how do they come up with it so they make it's believable to me that I can accept that the tools that you're using and the ships that you're flying in and the things that I'm seeing are so believable? Is there that one guy?
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Every time, and every time there's any kind of sci-fi thing you do, there's someone who's like literally geeking out when they're like, "Okay, Michelle, so here's your weapon, and you see it goes like this. You push these buttons, and it's going to actually do this, and then you're going to see a projectile that's going to come out." They are jazzed. They are geeked. They've spent months and months researching, putting it together, figuring out how it would actually correlate, actually work. It's if for the actors, we go crazy over that stuff. It's the playtime for us. I wish I had a tricorder or a replicator or a transporter. I would.
Oh, sure.
Be happy with that.
Sure.
So that person,
right.
I was going to say that person is equivalent to Q in the Bond world.
Yes, except for Q just has that, and these guys have a lot more
right.
actual that's they have to do.
Yeah, that's more earthly stuff that I can get at like Home Depot and put it together
right.
for them. These guys are creating stuff that you're just like, wait, how would you think of that? How is that possible?
I know. Well, I actually got the Samsung flip phone because on Star Trek, our tricorders are Samsung flip phones. We have a little unit that's on top of it that does all that stuff.
Oh,
yeah. So
listeners, this episode is not sponsored by Samsung. Not yet. We don't have any sponsors.
However,
yet.
if Samsung wants to send the three of us any phones, maybe the fold, we are there, and I will pitch that.
Well, no. Let's see it in action again, Michelle. Yeah, let's see the phone in action again.
Fantastic! It's just like that. How cute is that? And you open that up. Wow! And you can do all this kind of stuff.
God.
Sit that way.
Pictures like does it have a nice weight to it? Nice feel.
Nice weight. It's really a good phone, ladies and gentlemen. Go get
Samsung. Love it. So tell me about just a brief history on you, Michelle. You've been acting since you were a child, right? Out of New York.
Back in the horse and buggy days.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, we were there together. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Greenwich Village, New York. Grew up in West Beth Artist Housing. My parents were both actors. They met on stage together, and then my mother became a psychologist after the kids were born and realized that someone needs to make a steady income. And I was a classic teenager, little delinquent, all that kind of crazy stuff. And then
don't sugarcoat it, Michelle.
She was crazy. She was crazy. She was a little over there. But then I got, I knew that and I think it's my parents. I have to give it up to my parents for even in my, crazy, delinquent times, I knew the importance of an education and of a dream and, trying to go for that dream. And my senior year, I auditioned for Boston University, School for Theater Arts, and I got in and I got that bug. I grew up watching I'm the third of three girls. And my second sister, Adrian, started dance when she was like 3 or 4. And since I was the baby, and anybody who's, parents with children know that you drop your children both off at some place so that you can just have a moment. So I grew up watching Adrian dance. I watched my sister Denise on stage, and she loved, acting, and she loves acting, and she's now a stage combat choreographer as well as an intimacy coordinator. My father not only was an actor, but was an opera singer.
Hugh Hurd.
Hugh Hurd, thank you for saying his name. A glorious bear of a loving man. And so as the child, even though I was kind of a crazy delinquent, I watched my family blossom in the arts. And it just seemed like the natural step to continue.
Inspired you.
Yeah, to continue storytelling.
Yeah.
And mixed
cool.
in there, my parents are activists. And so I understood that the way to tell the stories of individuals that are marginalized and may not always have the voice is through art, whether it's acting, singing, dancing, paintings, all that kind of stuff.
Gives you that platform.
Art. Yet through that platform, we can tell those stories. And if we think about it, like it's, what you do as well, storytelling is a secret art form, and it's been around for centuries. We have stick figures, running away from woolly mammoths in the caves. And that is storytelling, to pass it down so that the future's generations can learn and grow. And so I'm so grateful for my parents for, whether I knew it or not, bestowing this desire to continue telling stories and trying to reach out to the world and let us all know that we're all connected on this one planet.
You do it so well. When I saw you in the Picard series, you're going toe to toe with Sir Patrick Stewart, and that must have been something for you as an actress, an accomplished actress. Yeah, I mean, I don't care how accomplished you are. When you're probably with someone like Sir Patrick Stewart, you probably learn so much too, as well.
Yeah.
But when I saw you in the first scene, what's that first scene when he comes to get you?
Right.
And you learn so much about your character in the first 30 seconds. This, what Rafi is like.
Yep.
And you were just, I mean, I'll tell you, scene stealer in a sense. And I'm just going, how do you overcome that, that sort of fear of working with someone? I don't want to call it fear. It's not fear, because I know you're not afraid.
No, it's just you want to do good, and you're with someone who's so so talented and so powerful in their talent, right? Yeah. And if anybody hasn't seen it, the first scene that I have with Sir Patrick Stewart, which by the way, I get to call him Peace Stew, which he loves.
Wait, first tell our listeners. I know they probably know your character, but just tell us who your character is.
Yes, Rafi, she's a great character. I when I got the audition and I read her character description, I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to play this part, because she is a perfectly imperfect being, which I don't know about you guys, but that I'm definitely far from perfect. And daily I try to journey on that life of discovery. And she is complicated, and she's vulnerable, and she's strong. She's she's an addict. She's a recovering addict. She has been struggling with that battle for years. She stumbles, she falls, she fails, but she picks herself up again every single time. And what I loved about that, and what I love about our producers and writers, is to allow me to tell that story in the true way that you can, because people who have addictions are with us. They're in our world. Yeah. They're part of our community. Yeah. They're part of our family. Sure. What I love that Rafi does, and what the Star Trek community has told me she has done, is she has allowed people who are on this, painful journey of addiction and recovery to be seen and heard, and to be understood that they are not disposable, that they shouldn't be pushed under the rug, that they're part of our community, that they're trying every single day just to get up, just to get up out of bed and try. Just try. And sometimes it wins, and sometimes you lose, but you try. So that's who Rafi is.
What a cool character to have in a sci-fi, a Star Trek.
Exactly.
It's like it's bringing those types of vulnerabilities that you hadn't seen in a Star Trek
at all.
series at all.
At all. The perfectly
and
imperfect beings, because Star Trek often has this utopia kind of thing, and everybody's very clean and wears their suits, their uniforms, and all
like
that.
me.
That's not Rafi. And Rafi and Picard history is, when we see her about 10 to 14 years earlier, she worked for the Federation under Picard, and Picard was her mentor, her friend, her partner. And when we come to see them in this first scene, we find out that she has spiraled back down into addiction.
Her addiction.
We literally find her in her trailer in the desert, and we find out that she feels, and there is some truth to it, that Picard let her down,
abandoned her,
in a
sense.
And that's where we see. And I have to say, just as the actor, that first scene, I'm literally, I put a huge phaser towards Picard, and I tell him to basically bugger off. And I literally, during rehearsal, I was like, and by the way, when I first met Patrick, I was trying to be really cool and calm and take deep breaths and like, hi, I'm Michelle and whatever. And I think my knees were making so much noise because they were shaking, and it dissolved into something like, hi, I'm Michelle.
Yeah,
it was crazy. And
yeah.
he was and is one of the most generous, self-deprecating, kind, delicious creature I get to call my friend, and he just enveloped me, and he's he said, come into my dressing room, let's work on these scenes, and we really wanted to convey a deep friendship between these two. Like in one scene, how do you convey a deep friendship that's lasted decades? And one of the things, which is so funny because I got such mean people saying things about me, but they all came around on the internet. The one thing that we came up with was that Rafi calls Jean-Luc Picard JL. And just that little tiny thing. And Patrick was like, she's the only one that should ever be able to call him
do that.
JL.
What a great little nuance.
Just a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
And it really showed their friendship, like the history of their friendship.
Yeah.
It was, and I actually talked to him and to Jerry Ryan, because I was like, everybody's going to hate me. I'm so mean to Patrick and da-da-da. And they were like, and Patrick's like, no, darling, no, they're going to love you. You just keep at it. You be hard on me. They're going to love you.
You know what? That's what makes great actors great too, by the way. Guys that have been in the business, guys and girls that have been in the business for such a long time, have such a presence, they're known for their acting and performance. I think what makes them great is the way they ingratiate other actors and make them look as good on screen.
Absolutely.
So I read an article about that. Everybody was excited when Jerry Ryan came back as 7 of 9, and they were like ecstatic over it, right? And then they talk about you coming on the show and how your character like flipped the series upside down. It was wild that you come on, and everybody's like, well, who's this? Right. Oh, I remember her. She was in Law and Order. And then the show starts, and then you're just like the driving force. It was really great to read that and to watch it. And what was great about it is that I didn't read that until after I had watched the series. So
yeah.
And one of the things that confirms what you're saying, Andrew, is I visited Michelle at a Comic-Con in New York City, and I have to say there were all the stars are there at tables, and they're all great and lovely. But Michelle, her line was out the door. And people for hours standing online, and they are all purists, sci-fi, Star Trekkies from day one.
Yep.
And Michelle's there standing for hours, hugging people, strangers, people dressed up in their Star Trek outfits, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. I had to wait to go see Michelle.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was
funny,
one of
I didn't. I got right in.
It's just one of those things. And if you looked around the other tables, yes, they had people were there. But I am not kidding. I am not exaggerating when I say hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people just waiting and waiting and waiting online. And Michelle did not leave until they were all seen.
That's right.
And that to me is what I think exemplifies the kind of person you are, Michelle, and that you truly care for your fans, and that you truly, embody this character of Rafi and that world of Star Trek. I mean, it's such, you're part of an iconic franchise.
I know.
Not many people can say that.
No, it was
global iconic.
That's
franchise.
literally. I think our first episode, our first two episodes, was directed by Jonathan Frakes, who plays number one, right? In Star Trek.
Sure.
William Riker.
I know Riker. And he said to me, Michelle, this is going to be unlike any show you've ever done, because when this show drops, you have 10 million family members across the globe. And I didn't quite, I was like, yeah, cool. I know Star Trek's, popular.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is Star Trek big?
Yeah,
really?
Do people know it? And I wasn't quite sure. And I remember when our very first season and our first time going to San Diego Star Trek, and there's a room in there, a hall called the H Hall, and it's huge. It seats thousands. And I remember us coming out on stage, and the reception, we hadn't even aired yet, and the reception blew me away. And then when I went to my first Comic-Con, and people from across the world, not in America.
You can't even fathom it.
You can't fathom it. They're touched by this series.
Yeah.
They're touched by this, because it makes them feel seen. Because they, it's a beautiful thing. And
what a cool experience to be a part of. Because I can't relate to it. I know Andrew can't. It's just one of those things where I got to live through you, Michelle.
Please do, yeah. And me too. I mean, awesome. I had no way of it, and I've been, doing this for decades, and I'm so grateful and honored and humbled that, as a woman of color of a certain age, and in this industry for decades, at this point in my career, to have something, a gift like this character and this show and this family to be a part of, it's unlike anything, as I said. And one of the things
special as it gets.
Yeah. And one of the things about the Comic-Cons that is so, I feel like I'm not worthy is because of who Rafi is. The people who come to my table, share with me these vulnerable stories and these, challenges that they've been going through. And they're so honest with me.
Are they speaking to Rafi? Are they asking Rafi for advice, or is it Michelle Hurd?
I think again, I want to harken back to the power of art. Yeah. I think it's both, right? Because of Rafi's story and her struggle and her journey, they see themselves reflected, and they want to come to the person who told that story that hit them.
Sure.
And so,
but it's not only that you're an actress, though. There's probably some perspectives of Rafi that you've lived through your life,
Absolutely.
But you also had to research this part, and so you really do become this subject matter expert in those kinds of struggles.
Yeah,
and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
and then people are probably ingratiated towards you more because you are an actress.
Mm-hmm.
And you're approachable, and you played this part. There's so many aspects to it.
Things.
I think we could really dive deep into. We need your mother here, so she can really dissect the whole thing.
We need this psychologist right next.
That's exactly right.
My 91-year-old mother, who's still a practicing psychologist. Thank you very much.
God bless Merlin Hurd, everyone.
That's right.
She's amazing. And didn't she just go skiing with you guys?
No,
or something?
I know, it's amazing. I always say that she is proof positive that if you do what you love, it will give you life. So, if you're in some workforce, anybody out there and listening to you, and you are suffering, you're grudging through it, and you're hating it, get out of there, do what you love. It'll give you life.
So what's up next for you, Michelle?
Actually, Michael Dorn, who plays Worf, Dorn.
Yeah,
I know, right? Who, by the way, I always say he's the quintessential gentleman. He really is. There's a scene in our show where he offers me chamomile tea, and I'm like, that's Michael Dorn. He wrote a movie with me, him, and Marina Sirtis, Tori, and so we're going to be shooting that soon in London.
Very exciting.
And then I have another film, which is going to be a Hallmark a holiday film that I'm shooting in May. Anywhere in there, I'd be perfectly happy to get another TV series, or if Star Trek
Yeah.
Legacy wants to go.
Well,
Then
I'm sure that it won't be long before you're back on another sci-fi series. You were terrific in this. It is now our time, Michelle, to go to the story for Mostly True Alien Stories. You want to stick around for this?
sure.
You want to be a part of it?
Yeah.
So what we generally do on this show is we are going to share a reported phenomenon, alien phenomenon in history, and then I will tell the facts or read the story to you, and then we're all going to weigh in on whether we think this is a mostly true alien story or not.
Okay.
And there are no wrong answers, Michelle, and you can feel free to comment along the way. I know Andrew always does, so.
Well, you know I always do. I can.
Yeah, I know. All right. This is the Travis Walton abduction. It's a true crime UFO mystery, if you will. It happened in 1975, in November 5th. And the sun had just set over the Sitgreaves National Forest in northeastern Arizona. The towering ponderosa pines swayed in the frigid night air, and their silhouettes stretching across the rugged dirt roads that wound through the forest. Are you guys with me?
I got it.
I'm with you.
All right.
I'm there. I see it.
For Travis Walton, he was a 22-year-old logger, and his 6 crew members, it had been another grueling day of cutting and clearing trees as part of a government contract for the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest Service. They were behind schedule, which meant long hours and a mounting pressure to finish their assignment before facing hefty fines. So their boss, Mike Rogers, the loggers, was on edge. Their contract was already in jeopardy. I think this is important, so remember this note.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. The crew, which included Ken Peterson, John Gouliat, Steve Pierce, Alan Dallas, and Dwayne Smith, was packed into a 1965 International pickup truck, and they were rumbling down the dirt road away from their work site. They were done for the day. They're heading out. It was around 6:10 p.m. Remember, November, so it's dark now. They're in the woods.
Dark already, yep.
And the sky had faded to a deep black, and the cold November air crisp against their faces
I
as
can
they rode
feel
on.
it. It's cold. Oh,
See? I set the
sure
stage.
did.
That's when they saw it.
What?
A bright light. Not just a light, but something glowing, hovering, floating silently above the trees ahead.
Oh.
At first, they thought it was a plane, then maybe a helicopter, but it made no sound, and it wasn't moving like any aircraft they had ever seen. Travis, who was sitting in the passenger seat, he was the first to react. Against the warnings of his crew, he jumped out of the truck and he ran toward the object.
Oh, right.
Don't go. Don't go.
Those
Travis.
loggers are so crazy.
He's brave.
Let's do it. Come on.
What Walton described later still defies logic. The object was a metallic disc-shaped craft. It was glowing with an eerie blue-green light, pulsating as if it were alive, and it hovered about 15 to 20 feet off the ground, spinning slowly.
15 to 20 feet. That's very close. You can see that.
That's just, you could touch it if you jump.
Yeah.
I think. Well, 15
no.
feet.
I don't know if I could jump that. You maybe.
I can't jump that high, so no. A little ladder, maybe.
You know what? I am going to try it later.
I know you.
Rocket boots. We should video.
What?
As Walton stepped closer, he felt an intense static charge in the air. And the closer he got, so he kept going. So he's feeling the static charge. He's still going towards it.
Travis.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not smart.
And the closer he got, the more his hair stood on end.
Oh, that's a sign.
Wow.
That's a sign
Yeah.
you might want to back up. But
Maybe get back in the truck.
the same.
Then a beam of light shot out from the craft, and the next thing the crew saw was Walton being thrown into the air, his body stiff as a board before collapsing onto the ground like a rag doll.
Oh, Travis.
Guess what his crew did?
They took off.
They took off.
Took off.
They fucking took off.
1975. They're like, I don't know what's happening. Let's get out.
They're like,
Those guys,
no.
they panicked and they sped off, leaving him at wherever he landed, they left him. They were out. And then the guys in the truck literally didn't speak for a while they took off. They didn't know what to say. They just took off. Then the driver, Rogers, slams on the brakes. It got the better of him. He was like,
we gotta go back and get him.
We gotta go back. We gotta go
Oh,
back.
man, behind. Yes.
Yeah. But when they got back there, he was gone.
Of course.
Walton was gone.
Gone.
Right?
Yep.
Gone. So these loggers, men of men, scream like little
These are
girls. and
lumberjacks.
took off,
They're
left,
lumberjacks.
That's right.
left their best friend or one of their friend, their crewmate.
Were they friends?
I don't know. We'll
Maybe
get to
they
that.
didn't
We'll
really
get
like
to
him.
that.
Okay.
They're associates.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's some people I've worked with. I would leave.
We might leave.
Oh,
we might.
yeah.
I would have drove over them on the way out.
All right. So at 7:30 p.m., so we're talking about an hour and 20 minutes later, the men arrived at the Heber Police Department. They went to the police department. They were
later. It took. What did they get? Like coffee or? Oh, okay, go.
Well, they went back,
wrong.
right? They went back to find him.
Well,
they went back to find him, right?
They couldn't find him, and then they left and went to the police station.
It's a long drive.
All right.
It's a long drive.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, they're up in
Whatever.
the mountains, right?
But
Where
I
the
think they
trees
stopped
are.
to get something to
I
eat.
feel
They're
like they
hungry.
stopped and got a little coffee or something.
Yeah.
Maybe a
Exactly.
nip or something. I don't.
All right. So they show up, and the police said that they were pale, they were shaken, they were out of breath. So something had happened, right?
They ran there?
Well, yeah. They ran from the truck to the police
Park
station.
the truck and
Right.
Yeah.
run.
Right.
Then they spoke to Sheriff Marlon Gillespie and Deputy Chuck Ellison. I love that we have the real names because this sort of legitimizes a lot of things.
Right.
And they recounted the incredible story. At first, this is what the officers assumed they had happened. They thought these guys murdered
Of course.
Travis Walton.
Yeah.
And were concocting an elaborate cover-up. I mean, for the police to immediately think that they murdered him, they must be, these guys must be,
They must have looked shipped. Like they must.
yeah,
Right.
something up. Yeah.
Yeah, man, he's gone. He's gone. He's just gone.
We can
I
kill
don't
him.
know what to say.
In 19,
Yeah, that's mustard. We stopped at Sonic. We had a hot dog and sorry.
But
Go ahead.
it's like ketchup here.
When dozens of volunteers, law enforcement, and search dogs scoured the area where Walton had vanished, there was no body, no blood, no evidence of foul play. So they just ruled that out right away. And the FBI, Arizona State Police, and the National Forest Service were soon involved in the case. And for 5 days, Walton was missing without a trace. Couldn't find him. Then in the early hours of November 10th, 1975, a phone rang at a payphone in the small town of Heber, Arizona. And on the other end of the line was a disoriented, weak, and terrified Travis Walton. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Where was he?
Mhm.
Well, when Walton was found, he was severely dehydrated. He was malnourished, disoriented. He thought only a few hours had passed, and it was actually 5 days. When he was able to gather himself, he recounted what had happened on board the craft.
Not be any probing here, is there? Okay, go on.
There might be.
Yeah.
I don't have the video, though. So Walton described waking up in a medical examination room lying on a metallic table. And the first thing he saw were 3 beings standing over him. They were small, frail, with large, bald heads, enormous almond-shaped eyes, tiny mouths, and thin, almost translucent skin.
Patrick Stewart? Sorry.
Could be. They wore
Oh.
tight-fitting orange jumpsuits and never spoke aloud, but he could hear them inside his mind.
Orange is new. There's usually silver.
Right.
Or...
Yeah, they
Yeah.
maybe they changed outfits for him or something.
Well,
They
it's
went
the
to Home
70s.
Depot.
You know what? It was the 70s. They were like,
70. And this is the operating room. Maybe the orange is their operating.
It could have been.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
So needless
I like
to
it.
say, Travis panicked. He jumped off the table and he grabbed a long metal object from a nearby counter. This is his story. This is what he's telling us. And he started swinging it at the beings. And they didn't fight back because they didn't want to dirty their orange jumpsuits.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
They just watched.
That's right. Instead, they left the room and he was alone for what felt like hours. And then he wandered around the room. He said it was dimly lit corridors of the craft, and the walls were seamless metal, glowing faintly. Then he encountered another being, but this one, he says, looked human. It was a tall, muscular man in a tight-fitting blue uniform with a glassy helmet.
Right tight. Why? We haven't learned one size up. Okay. This comfort.
This new figure led him into another room where he was put on a table, and before he knew it, he blacked out again. And the next thing he remembered, waking up on the side of a road, watching the UFO speed off into the night. So he saw the UFO literally take off. So the big man did something to him.
Well,
Yep, we're not sure what. Once news broke of Walton's reappearance, the media frenzy began. Investigators, of course, were skeptical. Skeptics argued that the abduction was staged so that Mike Rogers could get out of the logging contract penalties for being behind schedule. Remember in the beginning, they were
big
behind schedule.
story.
That's a big story
That's a big.
to concoct, sure. And then Philip J. Klass, a leading UFO debunker, accused the crew of orchestrating the entire thing as a hoax for financial gain. And then others believe that Walton had gone into hiding and drugged himself to to appear disoriented when he returned. It might have been payday. Maybe got some good drugs that day. They,
to
took him on the
dehydrate
woods.
himself and to I know. Okay.
Yeah, right. For the payoff, which we'll soon find out, that wouldn't be worth it. But then came the polygraphs. All right, so Walton and the crew were subjected to a multiple lie detector tests. They were overseen by the Arizona State Polygraph Examiner, Cy Gilson, and five of the 6 crew members passed.
Passed it. Okay.
They passed it. Walton passed his as well. Even decades later, the original polygraph examiner stated there was no deception.
Only one.
Except for the one guy.
The one who was,
except for the one guy who
he
lied.
always lied.
You're like,
No, that
yeah.
lies.
Fred's a liar.
Fred's a liar.
Fred the logger.
Fred the logger liar.
That's right. That's what they call him.
As we always do in these stories, I always want to know who did make money on this, right? So before we decide whether this is mostly true or not. So Travis Walton did write a book, and it became a major motion picture, which was Fire in the Sky.
I thought that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I saw it.
So,
Yep.
and that was in 1993.
Almost 20 years later, he made money.
Right.
Yeah.
However, he never made a fortune off this story. So he continued to attend UFO conferences, defend his account, and he took multiple polygraph tests over the years.
And always passed them.
Always passed. And something else that we like to look at is what other sightings were happening in the area at the time, right? So in the months leading up to Walton's disappearance, multiple reports of strange lights and UFO sightings had been recorded in Arizona. And 2 years before, a similar abduction case was reported in Missouri, leading some to believe Walton's abduction was part of a wave of extraterrestrial activity. These are the facts. This is what I know. I don't know, Andrew, if you have anything that I've missed that you would like to fill in, but I'm going to hand it to you first, Andrew, and you let Michelle and I know whether you think it's a mostly true alien story or not. And then Michelle will go to you.
So here's something that I found. We know that they were in jeopardy of losing this logging contract.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So what I'm reading here, they were going to be fined $2,500 if they missed their target.
Right.
Just
Okay.
so, $2,500?
Just $2,500, and they would not be able to bid on any other logging contracts ever. They were done.
What?
So you have to close the company down.
They got to, yeah. Or they get another name, they give it to one of the other guys. Maybe the liar guy, he could start a new logging company. Okay.
Fred.
So here's something that's interesting. Mike Rogers, right?
The lead guy.
The lead guy, okay? On October 20th, 1975.
Yeah.
So basically 2 weeks prior to this abduction, Rogers wrote a letter to the government telling them that they were seriously behind and might not be able to hit the deadline.
Right.
Here's something else that's interesting.
Lay it
Also
on
on that same night, October 20th, 1975, on NBC, there was a movie called The UFO Incident, a movie about the alleged abduction of Barney and Betty Hill.
That's one of the original abduction stories. Yeah.
Well,
Okay. Now, what's cool about this is that it starred James Earl Jones as Barney Hill, who had undergone a hypnosis session with a psychiatrist, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, they watched that film 2 weeks prior. It aired 2 weeks before Travis.
Wait, how do we
Walton.
know they watched it?
yeah.
Because they said that they did. Rogers came out and said that they had watched it
Together as
All
a
of them.
crew.
A little group of them.
together.
It
Well,
was like
no,
movie
just-
day at the logging
I
crew.
mean,
It didn't say that they were all together, but we know that Travis and Mike Rogers were together to watch this film.
because Mike is
Okay.
saying this. Did Travis say that he had watched it?
Yes, Travis watched it
They
as well.
both- no.
Psychologists and skeptics argued that after viewing this movie, any person with little imagination can now become an instant celebrity by claiming an abduction.
Okay, so what are you leaning towards here, Andrew? Is this a mostly true alien story?
There's one more. He was naked when they found him.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a phone call.
I would assume.
As we would.
Okay. Right? He made a phone call. Okay, so 1975, a phone call costs a dime. So did the guy in the blue suit go, perfectly insert that dime somewhere special so that he would have it to make the call?
Do we know it wasn't
Well, you know what?
collect?
Or he could have called collect, right?
Thank
He
you.
could have called collect.
Yes.
But in 1975, that would have been so expensive to make a collect call.
But you're naked on the side of the road. You're going to make a collect call.
So no one saw a naked guy running? using a telephone to call.
There were no witnesses of seeing a naked guy making a phone call?
No.
No.
With this new evidence,
What's your verdict?
no.
No.
This is
I think they made this up. Look, it's called mass hysteria. Mass hysteria can cause everybody to believe everything, and you can actually pass a polygraph test. If you truly believe it, you can pass it. And this is 1975, so the equipment wasn't as good as it is now.
but they still tested him years later. They're still testing him.
Whatever. He's been believing this for so long. It's true.
Andrew-
I think they did it because they were going to lose the contract. And what better way to say it than alien abduction?
Okay.
And what kind of friends or coworkers are these? Seriously.
All right, so you're saying this is not a mostly true alien story?
No, I think it's made up.
All right, well then I'm turning to Michelle Hurd
I
because
mean,
now she has to weigh in.
Neil, Andrew just gave some serious information there.
Oh, were you leaning the other way before you heard this info?
I was trying to track it all, and I was like, 1975, so it's not going to be any drone kind of thing because we didn't have that at that time. The witnesses, saying that they all saw it, I was like, okay. Now, when Andrew says the whole thing about 2 weeks prior, they had all watched a movie, there was all this information. There was a letter written about, we're late on our logging things. Have some grace with us or whatever. I think it's a terrible contract that they signed that if they didn't get that logging in, they're never going to be able to use, log anyone else. I mean, that's terrible.
That's part. Yeah, that's just, they said that what I read is that that's like part of the deal is that you've got to hit these deadlines. And if you don't hit the deadlines, then you're done.
Then you're out of business. I mean,
You're out. Well, you can't work there anymore. You can go work for somebody else, but they're just going to hear that you missed your deadline.
Yeah.
Who's going to hire you?
But with all that sort of stuff, it does make, and I absolutely, it is a true thing that you can have, mob mentality that if everybody sort of goes, yeah, that was it. They've done like studies of that when, witnesses, they have somebody come through a room and, walk through and then they ask all of the people what the person looked like. And if enough people say, no, they were wearing that blue jacket. It was blue. It was blue. I saw blue. Did you see? It was all blue. We all believe it's blue. And then it was like, no, it was red. It could be a completely different color. So I hear that. I also, well, it was interesting just hearing the story. I thought it was so interesting that again, in his story, when he woke up from the table, the first thing he did was jump off and start to try to like fight, which I guess is what you would do. But isn't it sad that again, just like I was saying, there's an assumption that they're going to hurt you as opposed to maybe going, oh, are you trying to give me like the fountain of youth that I will never age? I mean,
right.
Perhaps that could have been as well.
Try talking first, maybe?
Maybe a little something. And to me,
what's the plan?
And I know it's a story, but still, even like the second being that he found was more human. It could be that they're, so advanced that they realize, oh, he freaked out seeing our actual form.
Good point.
Why don't we do something that will make him more comfortable? We do that in Star Trek world.
Looks like he would like a very buff man.
Right, in a tight outfit.
In a tight outfit with a blue helmet, glass helmet.
Well, Travis Walton, the pictures of him show him having a nice Village People mustache. Right. I'm just going to say that. Of the 70s, yeah. He's a macho man. He was a logger. He had to be a macho man.
A little bit of fantasy in the story. A little bit of fantasy added in there.
So I'm not sure where you're headed with this, Michelle. So which way are you leaning?
Well, I mean,
is this a mostly true alien story or not?
Well, it's because I'm a Trekker. I'm going to say, I mean, it's if I hadn't heard that other information, the 2-week thing is really hard.
Andrew does that. He always does that to us.
Drop that knowledge, and you just got to be like, do I ignore it?
You know what? Let me just preface this with Andrew doesn't believe in any of this stuff.
Okay, never does.
Never does. So that's not information coming from a guy.
Not yet.
Not until there's.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, I need more information. That's what I usually say. I need more information. So it doesn't believe that I say it's mostly true. I just need more information.
I mean, the hard part is so there was a mass search for him. They couldn't find him. So for 5 days, I mean, I guess somebody could have hit him in a garage, someplace. So
sure,
he could have been picked up by somebody and driven somewhere.
But even if he was picked up and driven somewhere, did they for those 5 days to make the story correct? They're like, don't eat and drink anything. We're just hold on, you'll be okay. Just wait 5 days. I mean,
we have to probe you to prove that you were broke.
Some bruises in some specific spots. I have to say, if before I would have said mostly true, but now because of him, I have to say I think it's not true.
So Michelle Hurd is saying that this story is not mostly true alien story.
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay.
I'll send your check to which address?
Yes,
that's right. Well,
Venmo
it is
Venmo's fine as well with our phone.
Now it is my turn, and I will not be influenced by this mob at all.
Good job.
I am going. I will say I'm very disappointed in the two of you. Of your outcome.
Pressure. I felt pressure. I felt pressure.
No, I get it. Here's where I find this to be a mostly true alien story, and it's because I can't imagine in 1975 6 loggers coming up with this story and really writing it out. 5 of them, right?
One guy lied.
And just carrying through with this, committed to this story all the way through. I do think that Travis was abducted. I'm disappointed in the loggers that left him behind. I don't think I would leave anybody behind.
I'd leave you behind, buddy.
I'd
leave you. Michelle and I would leave. We'd be like, we're going to get help. And then we'd go. Like, we're going to go get Picard.
And he's gone.
And he's gone. But wait, they were going to help us.
That's the thing is that, when he was in the story that he tells, he was lifted up and then he was dropped limp. I mean, it did seem strange that they wouldn't at that moment go pick him up.
Go help him.
It seems whatever that the light had done did it, that's what it wanted to do, because they didn't know they wanted to take him away or whatever.
Yeah. One of the greatest actors ever, right, is James Earl Jones.
Sure.
In the history of acting, James Earl Jones. Could they not have been so influenced by his performance as Barney Hill that they made up the story? That's all I'm going to say.
I go towards the how you swayed me was the contract, was that they knew that they were not going to get the contract done. They were trying to figure out how can they save themselves, because they won't be able to work for that company or that place for a period, whatever, forever. And they saw the movie a couple weeks before.
In that scenario, why not? The machine breaks down, a guy gets injured, a fire starts, something
more
else other than coming up with this wild ass fantasy in 1975 that they're going to discover.
I think we should acknowledge the 1975 aspect of it. In the 70s, we were all kind of. There was some happy living little.
That's right, peace, love, and quaalude stuff.
Hello, exactly. So there was a lot of fantastical, thinking and, kind of crazy thoughts.
Well, I think that this is a mostly true alien story, and I will stand to it because they took the polygraphs, because there was such a wild investigation done. There was I think you'd figure it out. There was so many people involved, you'd figure out that it was a hoax and a lie at that point. Yes, they were going to get fined with a logging company. What I'd like to know is if they did get fined.
Yeah, I'd like to know that too. I haven't been able to find anything on that, whether they were excused from their contract. That I don't know.
Right.
But I'd be interested.
He's
still alive. Travis Walton is still alive.
Let's give him a call.
Get him on the show.
I'm gonna call him.
Get him on the show.
Hold on a second. No,
Michelle's calling him on your Samsung. Calling him on your Samsung.
No, she's going to use the tricorder phone.
That's right.
Yeah.
I am in the middle though. I have to say, because I'm from my Law and Order days, from my detective stuff of like detail, information. I hear Andrew from my artistry and my heart. I want it to be a true story, because I want to believe that. And again, I want to believe that they were just trying to check things out, not trying to hurt him. They were just wanted see what they could do, like maybe heal cancer,
Yeah.
Now.
Well, Michelle, I can't thank you enough for being a part of Mostly True Alien Stories. Our very first guest. Thank you so much. I'm a little disappointed that you are on the fence about the story.
All right. Great.
But when you come back in a year, we'll see how you are.
She's going to have been abducted, and she's going to tell her own.
Told my own story about probing, and they might have sized up. I'm just saying.
Your own story. That'd be terrific, Andrew. Great job at Alien News and Entertainment.
Thanks, buddy.
The lesson to be learned here: do not go in the woods with loggers if the aliens are coming, because they ain't gonna save you.
They're not gonna help.
They're not gonna help you out. That's right. All right. Great job, everybody. Michelle, love you. Thank you.
You guys. So nice to be here.
All right, take care. Bye, guys.
UFO sightings. Many Americans have wondered about reappears of unknown objects.